2023. We have a commissioner participating remotely, so all votes will have to be roll call. So first off, may I have a second?
Second, Bert O'Donnell.
Bert O'Donnell?
Bert O'Donnell, yes.
John
John
O'Donnell,
O'Donnell,
yes.
yes. Jesse Platt?
Jesse Platt, yes.
And Craig Hannafin, yes. This is a hybrid meeting. We have Zoom and we have in person. In the event of a technical failure and the virtual fails, the meeting will continue in this room. It can be seen on Marshfield television, and it will be available as taped afterwards. Our first order of business is 195 Ridge Road, dock repairs. And I see Mr. Burrows and Mr. McGuire?
Yes.
Can you speak up or speak into your speaker? I'm kind of hard to hear.
Okay, is that better? Are these on?
Yeah, well, they're not gonna.
They're not gonna amplify in here.
So the-
That's better. Thank you very much.
Okay, we'll shout.
I haven't seen you for ages. How you doing? Okay, yes, my name is Kevin McGuire, and I'm a consultant for Rich Burrows. And with Rich is Janet Morrissey. And this is for repairs to an existing permitted pier that's on the South River at 195 Ridge Road. I believe you guys have, you folks have the letter dated July 17th, kind of explains the whole situation. I can kind of go paraphrase each paragraph as go through a little bit of the history of the pier, if you wish, and just stop me as I'm going along if you have any questions.
Thank you.
Okay. Starting off, it says the property owner, property is located on the South River at 195 Ridge Road. And Mr. Burrows bought the property in 2012. Located on the property is his home and also is a pier that's in need of some repairs. On July 5th, we wrote to the Commission in the Board of Appeals, and on July 11th, we sent emails to the Harbor Master and also to Dave Hill, DEP licensing engineer in Lakeville, and inquiring about the ability to do the repairs. During the meeting, we explained on July 6th, along with Ms. Burrows and I met with Mike. He was nice enough to sit down with us and talk to us about the repairs. And as we were going through what we would like to do, we explained that although the pier had its Chapter 91 license, its Army Corps license, order of conditions, what was built, unfortunately, wasn't what was on the plan. So it's a little bit larger than what was approved. So Mike said that he would look it over and get back to us and tell us the best way maybe to approach it for the repairs. He came back and said that a request for determination of applicability would be the best way. But when you read the requirements of that, you have to show that the existing structure conforms to Chapter 91, conforms to your regulations, and it doesn't. So that's why we're here, to see if we can find some other mechanism to go forward with the repairs. And to date, the only agency, when I wrote this, the only agency that responded to us was the Board of Appeals, and they basically said that the floodplain coordinator, Mr. Stewart, Andrew Stewart, is going to require a site plan. So that site plan would probably be done when Mr. Burrows goes forward with some major repairs that's going to be required there. That was the only agency that responded up until last night. We got an email from Dave Hill, the licensing engineer in Lakeville. Prior to the construction of the pier, which was done in 1980, the former owner sent notices to several of the agencies, including the Board of Appeals. And additionally, the licenses that were issued was the Conservation Commission, order of conditions, Chapter 91 license and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers permit. As you can see from the history of the pier, the thing is over 40 years old, so it's been standing the test of time for quite a while. So he has to really consider his approach as he's going forward with the overhauling of the pier, understanding that he will need to file for the permits, and also he will need to get a contractor that will be able to do that work, and it's all cost consuming. So for the moment, what he would like to do is, if you would look at this letter that we sent you, there's also some photographs. And one of the photographs, this particular one, shows the pier itself, and down at the end, it shows the end of the pier, and it shows the ramp coming down from a deck that's there. There are two piles that hold a brace that goes down in the bottom picture that's attached to the float. Well, originally, that float was being held by 4 piles, but over the years, the ice, they were the victims of the ice, and eventually, rather than replace the piles, the previous owner, Mr. Burrows, I should mention, is the 4th owner since this place, since the pier was built. So rather than whoever did this replacing the piles, decided to do the bracing. Unfortunately, over the years, that bracing has really racked those 2 piles that are holding up the end of that pier. So what he would like to do originally was to replace those 2 end piles, or knock in 2 piles, sister piles next to them, and then take the float and hold that by 4 piles that was authorized by the previous licenses. And that's what we were going to be before you tonight to do. But unfortunately, the response that we got from DEP at Lakeville, from Mr. Hill, he is saying to us, unless we can show that the piles that were holding the float are in the exact same location that you want to put the new piles in, he won't allow it. And as I mentioned, what was permitted, what was built are 2 different things, and the pier is out in the river a little bit further. So we cannot meet that requirement.
So in what ways did the actually built pier deviate from the plan?
The original proposal was 80 feet long for the pier. Now it's 83 feet long. It required a 25-foot ramp. It's about a 25-foot ramp, but at the end of the pier, now is a deck, it's a 10 by 12 deck. That deck wasn't on the permits. And as a result, that pushed the float further out into the river. The size of the float's been increased too from, I think, 10 by 6 to a 10 by 12 float. So there are some substantial differences. So is there...
So when this was completed, was there ever a certificate of completion issued?
There was no as-built, no certificate of compliance requested from Chapter 91 or conservation.
Or conservation?
Right.
So there are still open orders of conditions, presumably, yeah.
For this project, there was a later notice of intent for a windmill type structure, and that was closed out in the 80s at some point.
Yeah.
Okay, so the float was on piers
Well,
that Dave Hill says you need
well,
to
it's
know
being by
held on
piles,
piers,
by piles.
piles.
Yes.
Awesome, thank you. Okay.
So as a result of kind of not being able to meet that requirement, Mr. Burrows has the option of bringing the float closer to the end of the pier. I'm going to call it the end of the pier, actually, it's the deck, by about 6 or 7 feet. And if he did that, then the ramp would be such an angle at low tide, this wouldn't be practical.
Couldn't, okay.
If he did that, he would be able to place 2 piles at the location that the rear piles holding the license float would have been at. So, but it's just not safe, it's just not practical to do that. So what we're changing in midstream at this hearing is, if, as I mentioned, on this picture, the piles holding the brace, we were gonna assist to those. And then, of course, we would remove the brace, and we would also remove the heavy wooden ramp and replace it with an aluminum ramp. So what we would like to do is to allow us to either leave those two piles there, remove the ramp, and install two new piles underneath the deck, and we could brace that whole thing across. Then we could put arms, aluminum arms, coming off those piles onto the back sides of the float, and that would hold the float in place. And that would be the extent of the repair, so it would be basically two additional piles. If you aren't keen on adding two piles, we can replace piles that are pretty well been destroyed by that brace, but to me, that doesn't seem practical. You'd probably make a bigger mess than what's there. And you can probably, some of the wood in the piles is fairly decent, so you would have something to actually add the braces to. So that's where we are. So we're
Okay.
hoping that there is some sort of a mechanism that you folks have that would allow him to do these repairs, rather than that RDA, as I mentioned, that we just, and I apologize for my voice, it just all of a sudden got one of those summer colds sitting on the beach Sundays.
I just got over one, so I can sympathize.
Yeah.
Well, I think wouldn't step one have to be getting a certificate of completion on the original orders of conditions, which would require an as-built
Yeah,
plan, as-built?
but we couldn't do a certificate, request a certificate of completion because what was completed wasn't what was permitted. And that's the same problem we ran into with the RDA, because we would have had to said that it was built, that it conforms to Marshfield standards. Again, this thing was built in the early 80s, and the standards have changed substantially since then. So,
So is there a way to, I mean, this is really jumping through hoops, but
yes, yeah,
is there a way to go back and do an amendment?
I would have to do some research into that. This was one of the first permits issued by the Conservation Commission. It's permit number 67 or something
Yeah,
like that. Yeah.
I should point out, when these permits are asked for and written for the construction of the structure and also for the maintenance. So unfortunately, he's responsible for somebody else's work.
Yeah.
He's responsible for the maintenance of that thing. So there has to be some sort of way of allowing for him to maintain it without going through a full site plan or a full semi-approval or whatever you want to call it. He does understand, and tell me if I'm speaking out of place here, but he does understand because this now is before the floodplain permit people.
Yes.
Andrew Stewart, that he has to eventually file a site plan. And not only does he have to show what's there, he has to show what he's going to do to repair what's there. And that's going to have to go through Chapter 91 and also through conservation. So he's got to put a long road to hoe before he can really get this thing straightened out. And I hope he has deep pockets because it's going to cost him money.
Any comments?
I'm just trying to figure out exactly. So the original design, it was supposed to go 80.
80 feet.
Now it's 83.
Yes.
But if we were trying to bring it up to current regs, we'd probably want to go out further anyway. There
Isn't enough water.
isn't much water under that float. So we come back to what was originally permitted. And then that extra, that platform out at the end, that was not part of the original plan, right?
No, it wasn't.
And you said they're gonna make extensive repairs anyway, like is all that decking and everything gonna get rebuilt, is that?
Yeah, the decking, again, once he gets in there, the decking, the boards butt up against each other, and now you can't do that, you gotta keep them 3
Right,
wide.
they're, tight, yeah.
The decking also is a little over 5 feet wide. I didn't mention that as one of the differences, a little over 5 feet wide now. You gotta bring that back down to 4 feet. But the piles are underneath the decking, so you would just look at each pile and each cross bracing to see which ones you'd have to repair, if you have to repair any of them. And the railings, again, they're old. It's over 40 years old, so they're old, so we need to do some repairs there. It's ironic enough, but on the section, you can see that this float was just the edge of the mean low water at the time. Back then, you didn't need, first started at 1 foot above mean low water, then it was 2 feet, 18 inches above it, now it's 2.5 feet you gotta keep.
Right.
things up.
Right,
So if he was going, and then it is, he has to figure out somehow if he has to push that thing further out into the river. There's 4 basic agencies you apply to, but they solicit replies from about 9 to 10 other agencies, and they pretty well restrict where these things can go and how they can be built. When we ran into these problems in the past, we couldn't go further out, we did the shoes, we did
right,
the shoes.
yeah.
Yep.
Which are very good, they're practical. And again, his access to the water is limited to the tides because of not having water. Over the years, the sandbar has decided to build up at that location. I wish I could take some of that sand and bring it over to Hummerock and put it in front of our cottage. We got all rocks over there.
Yeah.
Guess
That'd need a lot of permits,
It
yeah.
was dry, it didn't work too
Hummerock,
well.
I guess.
Couldn't pump rocks.
I know that there's a de minimis approval for activities.
Yeah, but I'm gonna say, unless anyone disagrees, I think we're beyond de minimis here. Whatever is gonna happen, I don't think we can do this under a de minimis.
And again, it's maintenance repair as opposed to
Right, but it's
replacing the whole
it's
pier.
pretty extensive. Yeah, I've never had anything this old
Yeah.
come up in front of me since I have been here.
Actually, a few of these piers that they've been complete replacements.
Right,
And we've allowed them to be replaced because they're bringing them into compliance.
Into compliance.
Or more into compliance than what
Yeah.
they were. So it seems like that's the direction you want to head towards, right?
Well, I believe Mr. Barnes is just trying to get through this season and maybe next season before he has to bite that bullet and really redo everything.
well, you need new pilings, you need new decking, you need a new ramp.
At this point, you just basically need 2 new piles. That's it. I mean, the old wooden ramp is it's so heavy, you just don't.
I mean, that's outside of our.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's,
go
we don't
ahead
care
and
about the
replace
ramp.
Yeah. So it's 8, then just comes down to two piles.
To the piles and,
Except though, Dave Hill told you couldn't do that? Is
No, those piles we couldn't do would be the ones holding the float.
Okay.
So we're changing what we were proposing to do to eliminate any piles holding the float, because we'd have to bring the float closer into the structure, which would make the ramp very, very steep, and just add 2 piles, but spread them out a little bit further than the 2 existing piles that are holding the brace that's holding the float. So it gives it better, so the racking won't be as much, as it is now, because right now it's going
Yeah.
like that, and it's destroying the piles, as you can see. And if you don't want to allow us to add 2 new piles, then we can take those old piles out kind of at the mud line and put 2 new piles in, so actually we're just swapping them off.
Can you make an estimate as to how much further out the float would have to go to be in the current, to meet the current requirements for,
I mean, low water, I really couldn't. It maybe Rich could, I mean, at the end of the float, how far up, what you gotta remember, you have to have 2.5 feet now underneath the float. You have to have 2.5 feet of water at low tide under the float, so that river isn't
right?
on a low tide, so how far out would you guess you'd have to push the float out so that the front part faces the house?
Get in the
would be
water.
out. Yeah, you have to have 2.5 feet of water underneath it.
I don't even know if you have, at low tide, you see people walk across to Hummerock and they're up to their knees, so I don't even think you have
Yeah.
that
I was
much
gonna
water.
say the
It's all
same
filled
thing.
in now.
And then as you do up in that area there, the sandbars are just building up.
Right, yeah.
So these piles will basically be a like-for-like replacement.
Right, except they want to leave these piles in
We don't have.
and sister them, right?
No, we can't sister them because they're not practical now.
Okay.
We just leave them there because taking them out might make a bigger mess than
Okay.
putting them in, and they could aid perhaps on the bracing between the 2 outer piles that are gonna hold the float. But we can take them out and just put the 2 new
And put new
piles
ones in.
yeah, but they'd be at a different location. They wouldn't be there, because it's not practical to have them at that same location if it's gonna hold the float.
Well, okay, so the problem number 1 is replacing the piles at the end of the dock.
Yes,
Problem number 2 is what to do with the float.
leave it right in the same location.
So did you say at one point that if you could get the float in the right place, you could determine where 2 of the original piles were and they could go back in?
You can see where the old piles are. They've been broken off by ice. You can see where they were. You can see, but those piles that are in, I have to point out, those piles that were in and are broken are not at the location that was proposed.
That was in the original plan?
And that's the problem with replacing the piles. In order to get them, the 2 of them to match up with what was permitted, you have to bring the float in about 6 feet. And when you did
And then
that,
it's too steep
ramp.
to be useful.
We'd actually prefer that not happen.
Right. Yeah, that's not good.
So is the dock currently functional today?
Yes.
It's usable?
Yes,
Right. So it's usable?
I just
And
tell
you-
everyone, walk in the middle.
No, and you say in the, I don't know what term it is, short, mid, or long, you're gonna replace the whole thing? The pier, the dock, the ramp?
No, it's not necessary to replace the whole thing, it's just the end section is my main concern. All the other piles are functional and you can't see through them, it's just those 2
But
end ones
I
that
thought
are
I-
holding
I
both.
thought I heard that you were gonna replace the decking on the
You would
ramp.
have, once you go forward, you have to bring them into today's standards, the decking
Yeah.
is.
So I'm just trying to, today, you can use it today.
Yes.
It's not optimal.
Yes.
You're talking about doing repair work. That's,
Down the
seems
line.
to be,
Down the line.
today. Well, no, this work that we're talking about right now.
Right, it's 2 piles.
Is yeah. But then, eventually, you're thinking about replacing the whole thing. So I'm just,
Not replacing it, bringing it up to standard.
bring it up to standard, okay,
Yes.
which is, yeah. So I'm just trying to sort out
Yeah, I know.
functionality today, and then maybe not worrying about doing this particular piece of work, but bringing the whole thing up to standard, a year or 2 from now. That's,
Well, the question is, those two piles at the very end holding that ramp,
Yeah,
holding the float, you know, they have.
They may not.
so they're not gonna, I guess that's what I'm
Yeah.
getting at,
Right,
like,
that-
you can,
That's the main concern of those two piles right now.
Yeah.
so you don't have the, maybe you don't have the time to wait till you do more extensive work. You wanna get
Right.
this, as a
That's
safety
the
concern,
immediate-
get this.
Right, I
thing
almost
done.
didn't put it in.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I'm just trying to raise, functionality versus some repairs
Right,
today versus
just
a better,
the two
a better
pilings.
world a couple of years out, yeah.
And that'll make it safe. It's a safety factor though, sure.
Okay.
Any thoughts, Mike?
I'd have to do some research into, I'm not sure. We could try to close out the old permit or bring in a new one. I'm not sure how to really approach that. There's a few different ways you can close out COCs. I'd have to take a look at the form, run through that, and then present a few options, if any.
I would mention also that I sent Mike a copy of Jay Gill's email that I got last night. And he said that in order to ensure safety and such, he had no problems with the two piles at the end of the pier. What he did with the piles on the float, if they're not in this permitted location.
So I think we have to focus on, right now, on just on those two piles
Yes.
and figure out the mechanism that will allow you
Yes.
to move forward. We have an order of conditions that was never closed out, and it was not built to plan.
Right,
So that's stumbling block number one.
yeah.
So there's got to be a way to figure out how to get those orders of conditions closed out,
Amended somehow.
to reflect deviations in the way it was built. But I can tell you, I don't see any way we can do this as de minimis, even if you want to call it maintenance. Do you,
Well, all I can point out is he's required to maintain the thing.
yeah, no, I understand, and,
Where was this on floodplain permits? I can't remember what the comments were.
I'm sorry I got your meeting off to such a bad start.
no. Okay, and here are the building commissioner's comments, who was,
I thought I saw him.
yeah, he just stepped out. This needs a type of verification from the Army Corps. The general permit under the state expired in April, and any new activity would require a special permit as there is no active general permit. And I believe the Army Corps permitting is just coming out or has just come out with a new, it is out.
Yeah, I think
Should be, yeah. No, they issue new permits every 5 years. This thing was permitted under the existing permits way back
Mm-hmm.
in 79. So again, when Mr. Perales goes forward, he's going to, when he does the necessary maintenance or whatever you want to call it, refurbishing of the pier, that he will have to comply again with their permits, with their existing permits.
Right, I think this is part of the floodplain issue, though. You have, we have the new floodplain permit that would have to be filed before anything
Yeah.
else was done. This is a tough one.
Yeah,
I'm
not sure if
surprised
the
that,
answers right now.
it's-
I think,
Been the first one that you've had to deal with.
Yeah,
I mean, there's so many piers, they're all piers. both
oh, yeah,
piers.
yeah. I mean, there's plenty of them out there that were never permanent at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we had one way up the North River, you know, that we
Yeah.
did a similar thing with piles, but, you know, it was basically, we had the original drawing, it conformed to what it was.
Yeah,
You know, where this deviates so much, it's.
that's makes it trickier.
You could kind of look at it this way, if the thing was built 3 or 4 years earlier, it wouldn't have gone before you.
But it would still be back again for whatever you need it to do. Yeah, I think, I don't think we can give you an answer tonight.
Okay.
That's pretty obvious. It's,
The problem is, it's the middle ground, it's not a total rebuild, like a
Right.
lot of these other ones that have come in. So, yeah, I think we gotta look into it a little more.
That's what I was trying to get. A total rebuild would be more straightforward.
yeah, but a total rebuild would be a massive undertaking. You don't,
Yeah. No,
you
I
have no
understand,
interest in a
yeah,
total
yeah.
rebuild because, yeah. Yeah, we're gonna need to have another hearing on this. We're gonna have to do some homework. Maybe speak to town council.
Yeah.
They may, Bob Galvin may be able to show us a pathway in a situation like this. But I'm sorry, I
Yeah,
can't,
okay. Yeah.
I don't think we can give you well, I know we can't give you an answer tonight. It's complicated. So, we will do everything we can
Yeah.
to work it out so that you can do what you need to do.
And we've just seen all this just tonight, but I think, can you think of anything else we need from them? I think we got all the
I
information.
think we have everything you have, and if we find, if we have questions or something, should we call Mr. McGuire or Mr. Burrows, or?
I would like you to address everything to Mr.
To Mr. Burrows,
Right.
okay.
And then he'll get in touch with us.
I think you've given us everything you have, yeah. And I have seen it, Mike has seen it, we were out there today.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we need to do our homework. And I'm hopeful there is a pathway here that is not incredibly
Right,
complicated
yeah.
and difficult, but I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
So we will get to work on it. And Mike?
We continue to the second.
Yeah, we'll go to the
On the
next
second.
meeting. And I hope we will have a better resolution when you get there.
All right. Good, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you for your time.
Okay.
may want to reconsider selling.
So I should. Is that what you're saying?
Just kidding.
Oh, you
No,
want
just
it?
kidding. Enjoy your dinner.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Next business item is 0 Main Street. And we continued this from last meeting. So, we have done some research here. And I have the orders of conditions. I've gone back and I've looked at the history of this. The initial round, the Concom denied the application. It was sent as a superseding order of conditions. That was remanded back to Concom, and they ultimately, after several meetings, conditioned it. But it was conditioned that no construction would take place until the vernal pool had been replicated and proven to be functional. Correct? Is that? So, tell me again what you are asking.
Just for the record, Steve Bjork. And and I'm just a prospective purchaser of this, which is why I came in before, but what we're trying to do is to see whether we can post a bond for the vernal pool. We don't mind doing the construction of the vernal pool first, that's not the issue. The issue is gonna be the length of time that it's gonna take to get it certified, because right now it's not a certified vernal pool. When I was here before, there was some question as to how National Heritage was involved and the state under the superseding order, but the vernal pool, because it's not certified, they're not involved. It's strictly just a local level. So we're treating it as though it is a vernal pool. That's what the commission did at that hearing. And I think at that time, the applicant had agreed to do that. Actually, the wetland specialist that did it is in the room, but it would qualify as a vernal pool, in his opinion. So that's why they treated it that way. So all I'm trying to do is find out whether this is something that could be handled through some type of a bond, whether it's a cash bond or something like that, if the commission would entertain possibly amending the order to allow the construction, still with the same sequencing as far as doing the vernal pool work first and all that, but not waiting, it could be 2 years before somebody could start any construction on the house. The vernal pool itself is only moving about 50 feet away, so I think as far as the amphibians and stuff finding it 50 feet away, it's closer to the wetlands than the one that's existing right now. So if anything, they're probably walking through that area anyways to get to the vernal pool that's there now. So I don't personally think it's going to be an issue to reconstruct it. And if I do get involved, I would certainly be willing to post enough that would make it so that the only real issue would be that if the vernal pool retained enough water for long enough. And, you know, I would certainly post a bond that if we had to go in and scrape it and put some clay in it to hold water longer and then revegetate it, we'd certainly do that. Wouldn't be an issue.
Would you put the plan up, Mike?
Oh, yes.
So you can see on the plan the existing foundation, not the proposed, but the existing, which is a small square. That's basically what the vernal pool is the old foundation hole. And it's going to be relocated, obviously, to the bottom of the plan, which is closer to the vegetated wetlands.
Yeah, I was out there today, and I know it's labeled as a foundation, but there is no record of there ever having been a building on this site. So I'm not sure what that is, but it's certainly acting as a vernal pool now.
Oh, yeah.
It's full of life, full of water and full of life right now.
Yep. Yeah, and there's no dispute on that. I mean, that's,
Yeah.
you know, we've agreed that that's definitely what it is.
And this is the replication plan that was approved under these orders of conditions.
Yep.
So you are looking for relief from the wait to establish.
I'm just looking to see if the commission would entertain the possibility of an amended order of conditions if it's something that I have under contract, that's all. And it is just a local issue.
It is only under our wetland bylaw.
Yep.
Greg?
Mike?
Something important to add too is you mentioned that the replication had to be completed before before the building permits were issued. So this was why the bond would be essentially a replacement of that condition. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't mind doing the work first. It's just that the whole waiting period and actually being able to obtain a building permit to purchase the property. That's
Yeah, no, I understand that. Any commissioner comment?
Yeah, I talked about this a little bit before. I've had a chance to refresh my memory on the whole thing. And in addition to the wetland specialist, Brad Holmes, we had a third party in on this, and this is what the commission settled on after extensive meetings. You know, normally a vernal pool, you wouldn't be allowed to do anything with 100 feet of it. you know, now, even with this replication, it's gonna be, what, less than 50 feet away from the building. As I recall, that was why there was so much discussion, and it was, you know, as I say, it was a decision by the full commission. You know, I think you thought last time it may have been, you know, the conservation administrator tried to push this through like this, but it was a vote of the commission for those conditions. I'd be inclined to leave them as they are.
It was approved 6-0-0.
Yeah, and I'm not saying there wasn't a vote of the commission. That's not what I said last time I came in. It certainly was a vote. In order to get in the order of conditions, it has to be.
I think I agree with Bert. I don't feel comfortable going against an order of conditions issued by a previous commission. And I have read through all of the minutes, and I know this was extensively, as Bert points out, discussed, studied. So I am inclined to say that the orders of conditions stands from my perspective.
I would agree.
That's all I need to know. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, we are now on to public hearings. First up is 317 Plymouth Avenue. This is a new hearing in compliance with the regulations of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and Code of the Town of Marshfield, Chapter 294, Wetlands Protection. A public hearing will be held by the Marshfield Conservation Commission on Wednesday, July 19th, to consider the request for determination of applicability filed by Robert Cole, and Commissioner O'Donnell is the hearing officer.
Okay, Mike, this is an RDA, so a butter notification is not necessary. Confirm taxes or?
Yep, taxes have been met.
Okay. Mr. Cole, are you?
So just looking to replace the existing retaining walls that have failed and now falling onto the neighbor's
Yep.
property.
I think, Mike, do we have the pictures?
Yep, I sent some pictures
Yes.
and a
Yeah, I know,
video.
I just want to bring them up on the screen so people,
Yeah, they do some
the other
tests.
commissions get a sense of what's going on here.
It's actually
So-
worse now than the
Worse now,
pictures
okay.
reflect. With all the rain, a couple areas have collapsed
Yep.
into the neighbor's yard.
Okay, and you have the pictures, Mike, of the existing retaining wall? That was the fence. Did you have the
That,
other-
that retaining wall is right here. It's essentially right at the base of that fence. Is the
Okay.
retaining wall.
All right, I think in the packet I have, there was some more, direct on pictures of what the retaining wall, oh, you have the same, what the retaining wall looks like. Okay, we don't have, all right. And you're going, the proposal is to replace the wooden,
Wood with concrete block, retaining blocks.
okay, do you have, we don't have any description or pictures of the concrete blocks, are they, could you describe them, or?
12 by 24 retaining wall blocks.
Retaining walls, okay, retaining, okay.
They're interlocking retaining wall blocks.
Okay. And the fence, what's the replacement
The
fence?
fence is rotted and gone, so I'm gonna put a new fence up, but.
Similar wood or
I wanted to put white vinyl.
white vinyl? Okay,
Yep.
all right. All right. So, Michael, do you have any, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. Do you have any comments or thoughts on the project, or?
Yeah, the retaining wall out there is in pretty poor shape. As Mr. Cole mentioned, parts of it have collapsed. I didn't see that on my site visit, but I did see that it was severely compromised,
Yeah.
especially on the side where the there's like a garage structure in the back along that side of the property. It's in really poor condition. The fence is located essentially on top of the retaining wall. It's maybe an inch back from the end of the railroad ties, but essentially when you replace that retaining wall, the fence will have to be replaced as well.
Okay. Are there any attendees had any comments on this work or on Zoom? Commissioners have any questions, comments?
Nope, I went out and it
Needs work.
needs work.
It needs repair, okay. So, Mike, you have special conditions you want to note?
The standard special conditions should be followed. There's an option to put a wildlife gap under the fence, but whereas this is on top of a retaining wall, I don't really see that to be absolutely necessary in this area.
Okay. All right. So, in consideration of the work that need to be done and the conditions that Mike has just specified, I'd like to make a motion for a vote to issue orders of condition with a +5 and a -3. Do I have a second?
Second,
Second, Craig, and I guess now we have to do a roll call because we're on
Yes, we have
on
a-
Zoom.
yep.
Bert?
Bert O'Donnell, yes.
All right. John O'Donnell, yes. Jesse Platt on Zoom?
Jesse Platt, yes.
Yes.
And
Okay.
Craig Hannafin, yes.
Okay.
Okay, you're all set.
Good to go.
Thanks for your time.
Thank
Good
you.
luck. Thank you.
Next up
Nice meeting you.
is 71 Constellation Ave. In compliance with the regulations of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and Code of the Town of Marshfield, Chapter 294, Wetlands Protection, a public hearing will be held by the Marshfield Conservation Commission on Wednesday, July 19th, to consider the request for determination of applicability filed by Raphael Reardon, and I am the hearing officer. Is there someone here to present this? Nope, I guess
Raphael, are you on?
not. This is a request for putting gravel under the home and also in front of the house, I believe for additional parking.
If you want, I can speak on this one. I actually filled out the RDA with the homeowner.
Thank you, if
Yeah.
you would then.
So the homeowner has current stone driveways, just gravel driveways on each side of the property. They would like to expand that into this grassy area in front of their home. Currently, there's just this small strip of grass in between the two gravel ways. And then also underneath the home where it's just open, pervious ground. So here, the highlighted area would be the desired area to place gravel on. Once again, this would essentially be connecting the two driveways and opening up for more parking and ease of access under the home.
Okay, any commissioner comments?
Straightforward.
Any audience comments? Hearing none, I will point out that this will need a floodplain permit.
Yes.
And in that case, I move that we vote to issue orders of conditions with a +5 and a -3. May I have a second?
John O'Donnell, second.
Vice Chair O'Donnell,
Bert O'Donnell, yes.
John O'Donnell, yes.
Jesse Platt,
Jesse Platt, yes.
and Craig Hannafin, yes. Okay. Marshfield Harbor Master, 100 Central Street. In compliance with the regulations of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and Code of the Town of Marshfield, Chapter 294, Wetlands Protection, a public hearing will be held by the Marshfield Conservation Commission on Wednesday, July 19th, to consider the notice of intent filed by Michael DeMayo, and the hearing officer is Vice Chair O'Donnell.
Okay, thank you. Mike, can you confirm abutters and fees?
Yes, taxes and fees and butters have
Town
been met.
property, right?
Taxes have been waived. It's
Okay.
public property.
Thank you. Mr. Brennan?
Thank you. Pat Brennan with PGB Engineering, here on behalf of the Harbor Master. This is actually a state project. It's the Green Harbor Boat Ramp. It's a 65-foot wide by roughly 145 feet long ramp. It's made up of various sections of concrete. There is there is asphalt on a portion of the ramp. That asphalt surface has a number of holes in it. And what the project is to remove the asphalt from the underlying concrete, and then up on the top, there is no concrete up where it meets into the parking lot, it's just gravel. So remove the asphalt and repave it. That's in the same limits that it's in now. There's also, on either side of the ramp, there's a concrete platform there that allows access to the aluminum gangways that go down to the floats on either side of the ramp. Those concrete platforms are pretty much deteriorated, so those are going to be replaced as well. And the piles, it's existing steel piles that hold the floats in place. They're deteriorated. They've reached the end of their useful life, so they're going to be replaced. However, they're not going in the exact same location. They have to go at least 3 feet away is what the specification is. As I mentioned, I didn't design this. I'm just permitting it for the harbor master. He's permitting it for the state. It's the Department of Fish and Game Office of Fishing and Boating Access. They're the ones that are undertaking the project. All of the other permits are being secured by the state agencies. Harbor Master DeMayo just offered to do the local permitting. We did file a floodplain permit application for the project. I haven't received any comments back on that yet. I know we did get a DEP number. The other thing that is being done on it, could you go to sheet 4, Mike?
Yeah.
So, yep, no, right back to that, the last one, I'm sorry. So this is the plan that shows what is proposed. It does show the outline of the asphalt that's going to be removed and replaced. What you see in the hatch on either side, on the left side of the image, is about a 50-foot long section right adjacent to the ramp that's been eroded over time. On the right side, it's about a 20-foot long section. Those are proposed to be filled with 6-inch, basically small riprap chink stone to prevent that erosion and hold the ramp in place. Also, the floats and the gangways will also be replaced as part of the project. Everything that's being done is in previously disturbed areas. And when it's done, it's going to basically look like it did when it was constructed originally. It's just bringing it back to what it was. The concrete platforms are being enlarged a little bit just to help with some access issues. But other than that, everything else is pretty much as it was originally designed. Be happy to take any questions. Unless you want me to go through the alternatives analysis that I submitted.
No, took a look at that.
Yeah.
It's pretty clear. Yeah, so basically like for like,
Yeah,
except for the stone that'll be
Correct.
added for the
Yep.
scouring area.
yes.
Other commissioners, any comments?
No, it looks pretty much like a straightforward replacement with minor deviations, but nothing significant.
Mike, have you got any comments?
Not particularly. It looks well needed. I took a look at the asphalt down there by the boat ramp, and it was in need of some TLC.
Are there any comments from the audience or anybody else? I see nothing. I'd like to make a motion to close the hearing and issue conditions. Any special conditions with this, Mike?
The standard special conditions would apply.
Have I got a second?
Second.
John O'Donnell, second?
Okay, roll call vote. Jesse?
Jesse Platt, yes.
John?
John O'Donnell, yes?
Craig?
Craig Hanafin, yes?
And Bert O'Donnell, yes. It's unanimous.
Thank you.
Next is Marshfield DPW. In compliance with the regulations of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and Code of the Town of Marshfield, Chapter 294, Wetlands Protection, a public hearing will be held by the Marshfield Conservation Commission on Wednesday, July 19th, to consider the notice of intent filed by Rod Procaccino. And I see Rod here, so.
We've got Pat Brennan here representing the DPW for both of these projects that were combined.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, the hearing officer is Vice Chair O'Donnell. Sorry.
And just to confirm, Mike, fees and abutters? have
Yep,
been
fees and
notified?
abutters have been notified of public
And
project.
It's public land, town land, so
Yes.
no taxes.
Right, thank you. Again, Pat Brennan, PGB Engineering. Mr. Procaccino is here with me, the town engineer. So this project is twofold. They're both in the same area, which is why we combined them in the same notice of intent. Cross Street, it runs from Route 139 to Old Ocean Street, and there's a water main that goes under the river that crosses there. It's an old cast iron water main, and it broke a few years back, and that section of main's been shut off for a while. The intent is to replace, it's an 8-inch main, we're gonna replace it in kind. There's a ledge in the area, so we're looking to put it right back in the exact same trench it was in. It does go through the river, so the work starts about, what is it? 40 feet north of the river, goes through about 20 feet of wetland where it crosses the river. And then it's another 125 feet on the south side of the river. And what we intend to do is, there's two outlets. This river is the outlet from Chandler Pond, one of the outlets. The other part of this project is the Old Ocean Street culvert. That's the second outlet. So the intent is to stop flow as much as possible in this leg when we go to do this work by working the flashboards on the dam up at Chandler Pond. And then we would place sandbags across the river, upgrading of where we're working, and then pump any water that's coming down around what we're doing. So we can essentially work in the dry. The intent with the water main, or the backfill for the water main trench where we're crossing the river would be clean gravel, and then I've proposed a foot of basically a river stone, which is a rounded stone at the top foot. So that basically makes up the bottom of the river again once the water main is installed. It prevents erosion, and it gets to what we need to do to get the water main through there. We did look at other options for trying to do the water main work. We looked at directionally drilling and that type of thing, but because of the ledge in the area, the cost was just prohibitive. We also considered maybe hanging the water main off the side of the culvert, but that's an old fieldstone granite culvert bridge, basically, and there's really no good way to mount the water main to the side of the culvert there. So we're looking to put it back basically where it is today. The second part of the project is the Old Ocean Street culvert, which is just around the corner. As I mentioned, it's the other leg of the outlet from Chandler Pond. And basically I did include in the notice of intent the latest report from Mass DOT. It's considered a small bridge, even though it's an arch culvert. So Mass DOT comes out and inspects these small bridges occasionally. They found it to be deficient, and basically what it is you have an concrete arch culvert. It sits on 30-inch high concrete training walls, and then under the training walls, there used to be basically chink stone in there that was mortared in place, and that sat on the bottom of the creek going through there is ledge. So what's happened is over time, some of the stones underneath that 30-inch concrete training wall have started to, the water has started to take them out of there, loosen the mortar that was holding them in place, and they've fallen out of place. So what we're looking to do is basically take those same stones, reset them back into where they're supposed to go, and mortar them in place. And again, the intent with this would be, when the work here was being done, would divert the flow through the other section of the river, and again use sandbags and so forth. However, this work, other than the mortaring, the rock work could be done even in the even if it's wet, because it's not very deep. It's not a high flowing culvert most of the time. We were hoping to do it in August, but obviously this year we've had more rain than typical in the summer, so the flow hasn't really slowed down. So that's basically what's being done here. It's basically shoring up the bottom of those culvert walls so that it stabilize it so it doesn't start to deteriorate any further. The concrete in the culvert is actually in pretty good shape for something that was constructed, I believe, in 1912. I'm sure there's been maintenance work done to it since then, but the concrete's in remarkably good shape.
Yeah, so, good description. The concrete arch, everything remains. It's going onto bedrock, so that's the footing.
Right.
So you're just doing stonework in between.
Yep.
I think that's pretty straightforward.
And I would note that this portion of the project is in NHESP habitat. I know I haven't received anything back from them. They did receive the notice of intent, but we haven't, so I know we can't close it tonight, but.
Okay, so it'd be pending receipt of that.
Yeah. I doubt that there's gonna be any type of a take for the work that we're doing, but technically.
Now, as far as the water main, reusing all the existing materials, dig out, everything that comes out goes back in.
Except for if it's unsuitable material, if we're running into material that is
You need to have clean sand around the water.
clean sand around the water main, like I said, and then that top foot of the trench underneath the bottom of the river, we're gonna do with river stone so that it stays in place. We don't want that to wash out. And right now, it's a gravelly bottom anyway, so we're pretty much matching what's there for the bottom.
Any further questions from commissioners?
Being that it's all in NHESP habitat, does that put time of year constraints on you in any way, or?
I don't think so, because I don't believe there's any fish in here because of the dam at Main Street at Veterans Park. But if there are time of year restrictions,
Yeah, they'll tell you.
we'd have to follow
Yeah,
those, yeah.
okay,
And obviously that would be in the letter that they send to.
right.
So that could obviously be a condition if that was the case.
Mike, did you have comments as far as the wetland delineations?
The delineations seem pretty straightforward. They're working in a stream there, so the resource areas are pretty cut and dry. I believe they're also in inland flooding district.
So-
They're in a flood zone.
Yeah, the water main work, actually the flood zone just does touch the water main work. The flood zone actually stops on either side of this culvert, so it doesn't actually connect through the culvert. And I applied for the floodplain permit for this as
Okay.
well. And actually, and I know there was a comment from the building commissioner, and his comment was, this project has minimal impact on the floodplain as it is a replacement in kind and will be primarily regulated under the Wetlands Protection Act and Board of Public Works regulations.
Right, yeah, his comment to us is just, you need a floodplain permit.
Yeah, which we
Yeah.
can apply for.
Okay, if there's nothing further, commissioners, I'd like to open it up for any public comments. Sir, please identify yourself. and-
Hi, my name's Tom Shields, 60 Cross Street in Marshfield. Mike, if you could pull up the previous slide, I appreciate it. I live here at 60 Cross Street. The work that's being proposed is going to shut off the river between Cross Street, east and west. I've lived here for the last 17 years. There's a lot of water that flows down here. And the idea that, in my opinion, that you're simply going to stop the water flow from Bill Early Dam at Chandler Pond alone, it's not going to restrict water flow, depending on when you're going to do the work. Right now, sandbags aren't going to do it, even with the restricted water flow from Early Dam. You should consider what water flow is coming out above our property from the Ellis Bog. There's a lot of water flow coming into the South River from Ellis Bog. Have you taken that into account?
Yeah, Rod was just mentioning that to me, is that we would like,
It's
we
a
need,
lot of water.
Yeah.
It really is. So, when I know that you guys were up there a year ago talking about maybe doing some sort of culvert or some sort of, what do you call it, putting dams in either side, put in, what do you call that?
basically a bypass to get it. Yeah,
But
we're gonna work.
thinking, I see the work that was done when you were trying to clean out South River below 139 with sandbags, the redirection. It didn't work so good. You were there, you were stuck there for over a month or 2 months, trying to just divert flow of the South River underneath 139 to get enough suction to improve removing the deposit of water that was causing backup under our property. Finally got it done, but sandbags aren't going to do it. Secondly, I'm curious about your plan on our property you said that 125 feet along our property line is going to be used to replace the water main, right?
Yeah, most of that will be out in the road.
Yeah, but I've got a lot of trees and fence in there that I put in place, and how much of that is going to be taken out? And what are you going to do to replace that, is my question. You're not going to go right up to the road and over. You're going to have to go directionally. All of my stuff that I planted is along here. So you're going to impact my property and the work that I've done along that property line. I'm very concerned about that. I don't want some indication of, I know the work has to be done, and I acknowledge that and appreciate it, but last time you guys did water work up there, you tore up one of my driveways and destroyed a couple of my big stones I just put in place in my driveway. I didn't complain about it because it had to be done, but I want you to be prepared to compensate me and my wife for damage to our property if that's what it takes to replace the water main. Next question I have is, how many services on this street are you servicing with this?
So currently, all the services are, the main comes down, it's backfed from 139 right now from the intersection of Old Ocean Street. And it's backfed to a gate valve that's right in front of your driveway, I believe. There's a valve there.
Well, what about the property across the street from us?
He's
Servicing them as well?
He's on that one as well, because the main that we're replacing is dead right now. There's no services off.
So you're just replacing water to our two houses from 139?
But it's the loop that goes
Or the
down
loop to
Old Ocean.
Old Ocean and down.
Correct.
And maybe the fire hydrant.
Yes,
on the north side of the river.
correct.
So, if I could add, one, this is an important connection because, and when we did disrupt, your property, it was when we needed to have a temporary line put in above ground and tied into that hydrant. The hydrant is live, but eventually we're gonna end up having to replace that main at some point in time. But this connection is important when we move water from the high zone to the low zone, and we have to make changes during emergencies. And it's been offline for about 10, 15 years, I would say, right now. I mean, it's been a while. But we gotta make this connection, and we're doing it within the layout of the road. Although there will be impact to the vegetation that you had planted, and we'll have to come to some agreement as to how to satisfy you. There will be, I think there's a tree right there that's grown over, this cast iron main, or very close to it. It seems like that's where it is. So there's gonna be some tree removal, and I don't know how you wanna deal with replacing it, but we certainly would, come to an agreement to do that.
I want to cooperate with you, but I don't think you're fully thinking of how you were going to stop the one. How long do you think it's going to take to do this installation across the South River?
Well,
It should only be a day going across.
Yeah, actually, this conversation should be going through me. I'm sorry,
Sorry.
but just to back up for a minute, your original question about bypassing the river, don't I recall that this has been done before in that area?
We had a 18-inch pipe, twin 18-inch pipes. It's a little bit different operation. We weren't using a trench box. We have it can be fabricated with a plate and a hole in it, so you can run a bypass pipe in there, so you can allow some water through. We had two pipes in before to allow that. It was a different situation because we needed some water in order for that back truck to work. So there's some water that was allowed to go through. Here we'd have a trench box, and then they would be working within a trench box, so they had a confined area to get their water out. So it's a little bit different, but there might be a need to pass water by, which we could end up using, the plastic pipe underneath and just allowing water that's ponded to get through. We got to do this in a dry area. We're not going out there today. We've been waiting for a while, and there are times when the river there is low.
Yeah.
And in fact, the other branch, there are times when there's no water in there. It just flows out across and behind Mr. Shields' house. And so we got to do it during a low flow. We're not saying we're going to go out there and do it now, but we're going to pick the time.
Now,
to do
when
it.
you determine the time, how long is it actually going to take to do this work?
I would say, we got to get the box in, set up, that's a day, and then the actual replacement, within the river might be a day in the river per se. The box would still remain, we'll be moving up, another couple of days after that. You're probably talking about a week to get it done.
So you are talking copper.
More or less.
Yeah, not samples.
Yeah, I mean, because it's a little bit different, because we will have a trench box in there, because we have to go down a little bit deeper than we were before. Before we had to block the flow, reduce the flow so they could get their people in underneath there, but they needed some water so that they could suck the material out with the back truck that they had. And it was a little bit different. So we will have some sort of a trench box in there, and we could retrofit it with a plate and a hole through it so we can get a pipe through. So there, you know, and then we've got Ellis Bog, which we manipulated the last time. We lowered it, so we had capacity, and then we shut it off and allowed some time to fill it up while we're doing the work. So that helped a little bit. I mean, it's gonna be a work in progress when we try to figure
No, I
this
get
out.
it. Right now, water's flowing like crazy.
Yeah, we can't do it now.
I appreciate your time and clearly you're putting thought into it. I appreciate it.
Right.
I have one more comment, if I may.
Okay, and then I want to go back to one of your previous comments, but go ahead, finish up.
Thank you. One of the biggest problems about water flow in the South River is east of the bridge, Cross Street Bridge. There's a restriction for vegetation that the last conservation officer organized to help remove that really decreased or increased the flow. And that if they could address that blockage up here, it would really help with water flow upstream of the river, including on our property. That's really starting to fill in. And finally, that all the two hydrology studies that have been done have clearly said that flooding on our house, our property here, really is dominated by the height of the river bottom by the bridge. And if it's too high, it's backflow that happens that causes flooding on our house. It's really critical that whatever you guys do and decide in terms of trenching and backfilling, that you keep that elevation down to the existing level now, otherwise a couple of inches makes a big difference in flooding our property. Thank you.
Just backing up to Mr. Shields' comment about the work taking place on his land or within the layout of the street. I believe you said it's all within the layout of the street.
Correct. We may need to, and we'll work it out with it, we may need to maybe install a silt sock probably right along the property line. But yeah, we wouldn't be going onto his property.
Okay, are there any further comments from the public? I see nothing. Mike, any special conditions with this?
Standard special conditions would apply, as well as a condition that during construction erosion control is in place and do not use hay.
And I think when they replicate that river bottom after the crossing, you know, you should take a look at that, and should be to your satisfaction.
Okay.
And there'll be conditions likely from NHESP.
Yeah. So can we close it, or should we continue it pending?
I think we can close it.
Leave the written record open?
Yeah, I don't think we usually keep, well,
Well, because you got to accept the correspondence from NHESP.
from NHESP.
I mean, keeping it open for 2 weeks, I think is fine.
That's fine. 'cause
Yeah,
we're not
okay,
gonna go
okay,
over
we'll,
the
we'll,
weeks.
yeah.
In that case, I'd like to make a motion to continue until, what's our next one, August?
August 2nd.
Make a motion to continue the hearing until August 2nd.
Second, John O'Donnell?
Roll call vote.
John O'Donnell, yes?
Jesse?
Bessie Platt, yes.
Craig?
Craig Hannafin, yes?
And Bert O'Donnell, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, 23 Sycamore Road. A new hearing in compliance with the regulations of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and Code of the Town of Marshfield, Chapter 294, Wetlands Protection. A public hearing will be held by the Marshfield Conservation Commission, excuse me, on Wednesday, July 19th, to consider the notice of intent filed by Bobcat Real Estate for a septic repair at 23 Sycamore Road. Is there someone here to present this?
Yes, James Garfield with Morse Engineering.
Hi.
Hi, how you doing?
Okay. All administrative requirements have been met, Mike?
Yes, taxes, fees, and abutters.
And abutters. All right, please go ahead.
Thank you. So this is a septic system repair project, which is entirely within a flood zone in FEMA AE elevation 10. So this is a approximately 5,000 square foot lot with 2 failing leaching pits currently servicing the dwelling. We're proposing to add a new septic tank, pump chamber, an ARC 36 leaching chamber bed to bring it into compliance. And yeah, it's pretty straightforward. I think this will be a good upgrade for this property. And we've also proposed an erosion control barrier around the entire limit of work. So I'll pass it back to the commission for any questions.
Thank you. Do you have comments, Mike?
Yeah, the area of the septic would be pre-disturbed lawn area, and also I would have recommended to insert erosion control under during construction, but their plan already calls it out.
Already calls for that. Okay. There's a really big tree right in the center of the lawn there. Does that have to be taken down?
No trees are.
No trees are coming down. Okay. Are there any commissioner comments or questions?
No?
Has Board of Health already signed off on this?
That I'm unaware of. My apologies.
And it needs a floodplain permit, right?
That's correct, which we filed.
You filed that, okay. Well, I think our obtain all
Yeah.
pertinent permits will cover the Board of Health. Obviously, they're gonna see this. So is there any audience or public comment? Hearing none, I move to vote to close the hearing and issue standard orders of conditions. Erosion control is already part of the plan. May I have a second?
Second, Bert O'Donnell?
Okay. Commissioner O'Donnell,
Yes, John O'Donnell?
Vice Chair O'Donnell,
Bert O'Donnell, yes.
Commissioner Platt,
Bessie Platt, yes.
and Craig Hannafin, yes. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, 15 Newport Street.
Hey, Rick.
Hi, everybody. How are you?
How you doing?
In compliance with the regulations of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and Code of the Town of Marshfield, Chapter 294, Wetlands Protection, a public hearing will be held by the Marshfield Conservation Commission on Wednesday, July 19th, to consider the notice of intent filed by Stephen Eardley, and the hearing officer is Commissioner O'Donnell.
Well, how you doing? I guess
Good.
we'll listen to you first. Well, first of all, I guess all the administrative requirements
Yep.
been met, Mike?
Taxes, fees, butters have been met.
All right. Okay.
Excellent.
Take it away, Rick.
Rick Savant with Stenbeck and Taylor. So yes, this is a residential raise and rebuild project. We're proposing to demolish the existing home and build a new flood-compliant home on the site. The new home will be elevated on driven wood piles. They're going to be about approximately 4 feet off the ground, which complies with the VE 13 zone that we're in. Top of the piles will be at elevation 15.1. So the original house will be gone. New house, pervious underneath. There's nothing proposed below the house to allow for free flowing of flood waters. Just a natural gravel surface will be left under there. There's no enclosures or anything proposed. So as part of the coverages, we do have an increase of 724 square feet of the building area, or the roof area. But of course, we're creating a lot of pervious area under the structure where now it was, the house was sitting on the ground. So we'll have that new lot of absorption underneath the dwelling. Yeah, again, compliant flood structure, and we have filed for a floodplain permit on this one.
Okay.
I haven't received any comments, but I believe that was just finished up today. Andrew had some requests on it that we did do this afternoon. And that's pretty much it. Raise and rebuild, new house on wood piles.
Yep, no, it's pretty straightforward. Mike, do you have any observations or
It
comments?
looks very straightforward on wooden piles, more than the 2 feet of space needed for travel of sand and sediments. So it looks like an overall improvement.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Any commissioner questions or comments?
I have one question. They currently have a paved drive.
Mm-hmm.
If that area were pervious, it would almost be a wash. I don't know if they would consider that.
They may. It was not proposed to me. They don't have a lot of parking on the site, and this house is going to be elevated enough to park under it.
Mm-hmm.
So, to the best of my knowledge, they were going to retain that, but I would certainly have to speak with them about that. I think they're planning on keeping it if they can.
Okay, I just thought I'd ask because
Right.
why not?
700, right.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any people in, I suppose that bug's been over here.
Oh, has he?
That
Yeah.
little, I don't know what it is, a little gnat or something. I thought it was that rope marine. Anybody in the audience or on Zoom have any questions or comments? Okay. So, Mike, special conditions?
Yep. The standard special conditions would apply during construction, ensure erosion controls in place.
Sure.
And then after construction, there would be a requirement for an elevation certificate.
Okay. And then you mentioned you have the floodplain permit is in process.
Yes.
Okay, that was Andrew's comments.
Checked on that today. It has been applied for.
Yep, yep. Okay, so if there's no other further comments, I'm going to make a motion to vote to issue orders of conditions. Do I have a second?
Second.
By Craig. I got to do the roll call. Bert O'Donnell,
Bert O'Donnell, yes?
Craig,
Craig Hannafin, yes?
Jesse,
Bessie Platt, yes?
and John O'Donnell, yes. Okay,
Excellent.
thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a great night.
Thank you. You too. All
Rick.
right.
Thank you, Mike.
41 Parker Street. In compliance with the regulations of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and Code of the Town of Marshfield, Chapter 294, Wetlands Protection, a public hearing will be held by the Marshfield Conservation Commission on Wednesday, July 19th in the Select Board Hearing Room to consider the notice of intent filed by Paul DeBello and Jennifer Massa for a raise and rebuild at 41 Parker Street. And I think, Brad, you must be here to represent them.
I am. Thank you, members of the commission.
I am the hearing officer, by the way, and all administrative requirements are met.
Yep. Taxes,
Okay.
fees, butters.
Go ahead.
Thank you. This is a good project to follow up on the project we just had. This is a single-family home reconstruction project. It's currently a house with a foundation. We're in the Barrier Beach coastal dune system within land subject to coastal storm flowage. It doesn't have the appearance of a dune system. It's a fully lawned property. But in order for us to bring the property into compliance with FEMA and comply with the performance standards for a coastal dune, we need to set a new home on wooden piles. So it would be similar to the last project in that the house would be reconstructed, elevated above the flood zone. The flood zone is at elevation 9. The first floor of the house would be at 11 and up. The home is proposed to be constructed in just about the same footprint as it is now. The only addition is that there'll be a new front entrance because now we're going to be higher, and there's a deck proposed at the rear of the house with stairway. There is a pervious patio that's proposed, but there's a pervious patio existing. So we're going to take that same square footage and reconstruct a new patio that would be pervious. The existing patio is not pervious. And obviously under the house the surface would be gravel so that it would be a fully pervious property where it isn't now. There's actually a small, maybe 1.5 feet or so retaining wall around the existing home. It's kind of an old stone retaining wall. is actually proposed to be removed as well, so now we're taking that potential blockage out as well. So overall, it's a full improvement to the resource areas of the barrier beach and land subject to coastal storm flowage. So, and once we're done, we'll restore it as a, lawn, and any landscape plantings that would be used would be native species, and I put the applicable coastal plant list that they could choose from should they wish to add some native plants within the area. And again, it's a full improvement project, but should they wish to choose, they already have a list that they can pick from. So with that, I'll bring it back to the commission.
Thank you. Do you have any comments, Mike?
Yep, the home would be on driven wooden piles. Would be an improvement.
I note that on the plan there is no impervious table.
Okay.
We need to have that. And it would probably be helpful if the elevation were referenced on the plan too. The building commissioner said he has been working with the homeowners on a substantial improvement.
Yes, I should have, I missed that. They have already filed for their floodplain permit. I
Okay.
did speak with Mr. Stewart. My question about what would he be looking for as far as a substrate underneath, and he said gravel would be suitable.
Gravel,
And
okay.
more applicable to the commission, but I know that they've already applied and been working through that process.
Andrew, we are on 41 Parker Street.
Yes.
Do you have any comments, anything you want to add?
Just, it started as a stop work order, and being in a coastal dune and in this zone, it was tough. They were actually on vacation when it all went down. But, and it was difficult trying to figure out what approach they were going to do. Their house the existing house was already at the elevation it needed to be, but the foundation wasn't compliant. So went through a lot of iterations and planning, and eventually they just decided, the best option would be new home, full compliance with everything. And they've been really great to work with, and their goal is just to have a great house that meets all of our standards.
Okay, so
And I agree, even removing the retaining wall, if you go through the photos, you'll see a little retaining wall that sits around the house, and I said, we're not gonna be able to improve that, and they said we'll actually be willing to take it out.
Take it
And
out.
any driveway would be gravel or pea stone or clamshell. They're not looking to do anything more to increase like patio. They're just gonna replace the same size. So I agree. I was afraid getting into this because you get into a site where it's a full, it's not a dune, whereas we worked down the street on 70
Right.
and it's a full dune system. But this, someone would say, what are you talking about? It's a dune, it's fully lawn. But they were very good to work with and understood the requirements.
any other commissioner comments?
No.
Any comments? Oh, I'm sorry, Mike.
Yeah, I would just recommend the standard special conditions for this one, and then during construction ensuring erosion controls in place, and after construction providing an elevation certificate.
And did you want to get the pervious table?
I would like to have the, impervious
I can get
table
that
on
onto the
the
plan.
plan. Yes, the lady here?
I'm from on the corner of Parker and Standish Street, and we have a terrible rainflow drainage there, and there's a lake in front as you come around the corner on Standish Street to Parker. And I wondered how the piling, driving the piles of the water table might be affected by that. Forgive me, I'm not versed in it, but we have a terrible problem. There's no drainage. There's nothing connected to drain. It's a separate issue, I realize, but in the meantime, when you start construction, I'm not sure when that is, there's water there now. There's never no water there now, and it's halfway up my driveway. It needs to be addressed, but will this affect it during the building so that we can't address it?
Sure.
I'll be underwater.
The piling won't affect the flooding issue. The overall project will actually allow for more infiltration of water in the area, because now we have a house that's blocking, water infiltration. Now it's gonna be lifted up, so that whole area will be able to percolate. I don't think it's flooding, within that area of their house, but
The water
in that-
does come down and then for some reason it's a little dry and then it takes a left and it does collect. I figured the building gas would fix that, but would that make more water out on Standish Street where if anybody's driven to the Rexon parking lot, they go through the lake first?
It won't have any increase. I mean, it may have a potential betterment, because now we're gonna have a site that can hold more, infiltrate more water than it does now. And we're not changing any grades or doing anything.
So
to that
it's not
extent.
affecting the water table, I guess, is what you're saying?
No, correct. Sure.
Any other questions? Okay, hearing none, I move that we vote to issue, I move to vote to close the hearing and issue orders of conditions. I would like to have the impervious table, so if we could have an updated plan by, is it
Friday or Monday, which
Sure.
works for you.
Yes, that would work.
Friday or
If Monday would, just in case I
okay.
can't make Friday, but I'll coordinate with the surveyor to get that on the plan.
Okay.
Okay. Let's do Monday.
And if we're gonna require an elevation certificate, I guess we don't need an elevation on the plan? Do we typically put an elevation?
Yeah, so this project or any new construction is gonna require 3 sets of elevation certificates, so they'll give us a proposed one, which they might have already. And then they give us one once the pilings are in and the beams are across.
Mhm.
And then they do a final one, which is the one that I review for FEMA compliance. And we will, those all get put on the floodplain permit and will get shared with you by the time they come for certificate of completion.
Okay. But is there utility to having it on, just to indicate that you're going, 11 feet?
Right, it is on the, it isn't.
It is on the plan.
Well, it says first floor elevation 11.6, it's in that
Okay.
corner, but
Okay,
we
then that's
could get a
good.
little bit better. Okay.
No, that's fine, if
All right.
if it's on there, I was looking at the other, yeah, okay. So, yeah, just put the impervious table on there. So, may I have a second?
Second, Bert O'Donnell?
Commissioner O'Donnell?
John O'Donnell, yes?
Commissioner Platt?
Bessie Platt, yes.
Vice Chair O'Donnell?
Bert O'Donnell, yes.
And Craig Hannafin, yes.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Night.
All right, and now we have a continued hearing. This is 2000 Ocean Street, and I see Mr. Poulos is here, and we have a new plan. And the hearing officer is Vice Chair O'Donnell.
Yeah. So you have your plan from Merrill, right?
Yes, I have.
And I believe that incorporated the input we got from the town engineer. Mike, can you comment on that?
Yes, we got a new plan from Merrill the other day. Let me pull it up here. Is anybody from Merrill on?
I don't see anybody. You're representing yourself, right, Mr.
Yes,
Poulos?
yes. They extended the trench that was there,
They have
and I think, as the engineer suggested,
They have the recharge swale noted here. I'm kind of pointing it out with the mouse on my computer, but in this general area.
So you confirm this, this conforms to what Rod's suggestions were?
Yes.
Yeah, I think this is what we're looking for, is the
Yeah.
increased drainage.
Mhm.
And it's actually behind the conservation markers, but that's probably a good thing, that limits any work from disturbing that drain area, plowing and that kind of thing.
Right, right.
Do you have anything else to add, sir?
Hopefully this will go through.
Yeah. Anything else for commissioners?
No?
No, I think this is what we had asked for.
Okay. And Mike, anything to add?
I think this is the final hearing.
Okay. I don't see anybody left in the room, but I'd like to open it up to public comments. I see nothing. This is an RDA, so it'd be
+5,
positive
-3.
negative 5, or have I got that
+5,
backwards?
-3.
+5 and -3. Have I got a second?
Second.
Second is Craig Hannafin. Roll call vote.
John O'Donnell, yes?
Jesse?
Jesse Platt, yes.
Craig?
Craig Hannafin, yes.
And Bert O'Donnell, yes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna read the continuations. 172 South River Street, RDA 2312. I move that we vote to continue this to August 2nd. May I have a second?
John O'Donnell, second?
Bert O'Donnell?
Bert O'Donnell, yes.
Jesse Platt?
Jesse Platt, yes.
John?
John O'Donnell, yes.
And Craig, yes. SC 42 2975 amended, 160 Bay Avenue. I move that we vote to continue to August 2nd. May I have a second?
John O'Donnell, second?
Jesse?
Jesse Platt, yes.
Bert?
Bert O'Donnell, yes.
John O'Donnell, yes.
And Craig, yes. SE 42 3051 3 South Street. I move that we vote to continue to August 2nd. May I have a second?
Second, John O'Donnell?
Bert?
Bert O'Donnell, yes.
Jesse?
Jesse Platt, yes.
John O'Donnell, yes.
And Craig Hannafin, yes. 146 Dakota Street, SE 42 3024. I move that we vote to continue to August 2nd. May I have a second?
John O'Donnell, second?
Jesse?
Jesse Platt, yes.
Bert?
Bert O'Donnell, yes.
John O'Donnell, yes.
And Craig Hannafin, yes. And SE 42 30 15 60 Foster Ave. I move that we vote to continue to August 2nd. May I have a second?
Second, John O'Donnell?
Bert?
Bert O'Donnell, yes.
Jesse?
Jesse Platt, yes.
John O'Donnell, yes.
And Craig Hannafin, yes. And 274 Foster Ave. I move that we vote to continue to August 2nd. May I have a second?
Second, John O'Donnell?
Jesse?
Jesse Platt, yes.
John?
John O'Donnell, yes.
Bert?
Bert O'Donnell, yes.
And Craig Hannafin, yes. And then we just have COCs. SC 422605. I move that we vote to table this.
Oh, no, sorry.
No? Are you ready to
Wrong
go?
motion. Vote to extend for 3 years.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
That's to treat hydrilla. It's an invasive aquatic
Right, this is the
plant.
hydrilla treatment, Magoon, Oakman, Hatch, Mounds, Ponds. Okay, I move that we vote to extend their program an additional 3 years. May I have a second?
Second, John O'Donnell?
Jesse?
Jesse Platt, yes.
Bert?
Bert O'Donnell, yes.
John O'Donnell, yes.
Craig Hannafin, yes. SE 422712, 110 Preston Terrace. The plantings here are not exactly as planted, but the plants that are there have thrived and are doing great. So I move that we vote to issue a COC. May I have a second?
John O'Donnell, second.
Jesse?
Jesse Platt, yes.
Bert?
Bert O'Donnell, yes?
John?
John O'Donnell, yes.
Craig Hannafin, yes. And where are we on 71 Constellation?
71 Constellation, they need an updated elevation cert.
Okay.
Their current cert shows the utilities at ground level.
Right, and
So
they're-
I spoke with Stembeck and Taylor as well as the former homeowner who is trying to close out the COC, and they're going to be working on that.
Okay, so I move that we vote to table SE 42 1500. May I have a second?
John O'Donnell, second.
Jesse?
Jesse Platt, yes.
Bert?
Bert O'Donnell, yes?
John
John?
O'Donnell, yes.
And Craig Hannafin, yes. And SE 42 2773 1185 Ferry. I move that we vote to table until
Some movement happens there.
August 2nd. May I have a second?
Second, John O'Donnell.
Jesse?
Jesse Platt, yes.
Bert?
Bert O'Donnell, yes?
John?
John O'Donnell, yes.
Craig Hannafin, yes. That concludes our business. I move that we vote to close the meeting of July 19th of the Marshfield Conservation Commission. May I have a second?
Second, John O'Donnell.
Jesse?
Jesse Platt, yes.
Bert?
Bert O'Donnell, yes?
John?
John O'Donnell, yes.
Craig Hannafin, yes. We are adjourned. Jesse, thank you so much for zooming in while on vacation.